Hello and welcome to the Gooners podcast, episode 5.56, called "What the Hell Did We Just See?" or something of that nature. Mikey, a day later.
It's not running a quiz site.
Have you calmed down from that roller coaster ride yesterday?
Yeah. I normally reading up about him, Don. He's through Arsenal.
Yeah, I normally need a few hours to decompress. So, yeah, getting on a few different podcasts, talking about it, having a few beers. I'm all calm and composed, as calm and composed as you can be as an Arsenal fan. So I'm ready to hopefully talk about it with a cool head.
You are pretty even keel. So unless you've been living under a rock, Arsenal played 2 games of football yesterday. In total, 90 minutes. And we're here to talk about both of them. But really, just a quick note before we get to our guests. Enjoyed doing our first in an ongoing series of post-game open mic shows. I'd call it a measured success. Hopefully they'll grow in stature and numbers, and we'll get to see some different names and faces on there. But we had some folks join us who aren't normally on podcasts, but they have their own views. And about 5 or 6 yesterday. It was a fun time. Enjoyed doing it. And Mike, thanks for riding side saddle with me. I'm glad you did not speed away in your Lamborghini before the rest, while the rest of us were warming down from the game. One more quick piece of business before we go to our guests. This is my second pod today. I've been podding so much I haven't had time to eat any of my 4 sandwiches. But what an absolute pleasure to speak.
Sound like Luke Gunner now.
Well, I wasn't, I wasn't saying that.
Easy.
But
easy.
What a pleasure to spend. You speak about, apples and oranges. There's that pod a couple of weeks ago, and then earlier today, an hour with Peter Drury, an hour plus. It was an early kickoff time, so if you didn't get a chance to catch it, go back and watch it. Believe me, not for us, but for him. The guy's an absolute joy to talk to, a joy to listen to during the game. And, no matter how many or how few people tune into the podcast, I will always enjoy doing it for conversations with people like that. And, of course, for people like you guys as well. I get to talk to you too. So last Thursday, I joined the boys on Guns and Yellow Ribbons before the Olympiacos game, the second Olympiacos game, and that went really well. But I'd say the hour before the game with you two was, with you three actually, was much more entertaining than the game itself. But we have 2 of the boys with us for the return fixture today, starting with my man Ferg. He's a man of youth, of vim and vigor. Despite looking only 40 years old, he has the same number of grandkids as Mike Hernandez has actual kids. Welcome back to the podcast, Fergster.
Well, thank you for inviting me. And I also am glad I can fill the void that Owen has missed, because he was in the credits there. So, the token Irishman is in there. So, it's a requirement being an Arsenal fan, obviously, with the heritage of the Irish within Arsenal and so on.
It is a requirement. We actually had one podcast where Andy couldn't make it, and we had on another expat England native who lives in Colorado, our good friend Laurie Laker. So it's like we have stand-ins ready in any situation, and we should advertise on that intro, card subject to change. So you end up getting Mike and I, you're expecting Andy and Owen, whatever you're going to get. But Ferg, good to have you back. And tonight, breaking his Gooners podcast duck, we have joining us Trev, aka Gooner Hillsey. Trev, thanks for joining us. It's good to see you. It's nice to see you. We've not yet heard you.
Mate. Thank you very much for the invite, mate. Yeah.
Oh,
Can you not hear? Oh, here we go again. Am I back? Am I? I'm surprised I'm on a terrible delay, as I explained to you. Thank you for inviting me on. I do appreciate it. I'm looking forward to this, actually. I read the bio about your podcast, boys, and it said you're unique, you're sexy, you're funny. So I can understand why you've invited me on, to be honest. Why you've invited the other bloke, Fergus, on, I don't know. Because he doesn't fill any of those remits. But we'll see how we go, eh? Thank you for the invite, boys. It's a pleasure.
No problem. And if you'll bear with us, I think we do have a bit of a delay. But so tell us, Trev, because we haven't had you on yet. How Arsenal? Why Arsenal? When Arsenal? And how'd you end up meeting up with Fergus and doing the podcast thing? I mean, grandparents aren't supposed to know how to work the internet.
Yeah. Well, I don't. Obviously, you can see how terrible my internet is, and I had to ask you to send me the link 3 times for the show tonight because I kept deleting. But no, I've been an Arsenal fan ever since I can remember. I'm born and raised in North London, and I went to my first game when I was 8 years old in December 1970. Arsenal beat Wolves. John Radford scored the winner, and I could still remember seeing that hallowed green to Highbury for the first time as a very young kid, and without realising it and without having a choice, you know, you fall in love. You know, we've all done it. You fall in love with a football team, and then that's it. You're stuck for life then. And I'm absolutely crazy. I collect Arsenal memorabilia. I've got my season ticket in the North Bank. I travel all over Europe to watch us. I had a good few years off when the kids were growing up because I couldn't afford to do what I wanted to do and raise the kids and go to all the games. But obviously, last few years since kids have grown up and I'm back into it, mate. And I don't miss a game, home, abroad, overseas, wherever. You'll find me there somewhere. And it's strange how I got to know Fergus, mate, because my season ticket at the Arsenal, I sit next to a lad called Johnny who also comes onto our podcast. And he introduced me to Fergus, and Fergus invited me onto the podcast. And I'd never done anything like it before. And like I have to talk to.
But you're a natural.
He's in fairness to Trev, he's in Lincolnshire. He's tried absolutely everything to try and get his broadband going from mobile broadband to satellite broadband, and he's in the arsehole of nowhere. So he struggles. Trev.
So you're in Lincolnshire and you go to every home and away game, or do you move to London for the season, Trev?
Boys, I'm just going to join you on my phone. So I'm coming off of here. Let me in again.
There we go. That will work better.
Double down. There you go.
There we go.
Is that better?
That is so much better. All right. So we've got you back. Even despite being in Lincolnshire, do you travel from a distance for every home and away game, or every?
Yes, mate. Last year I spent the year living in Greece, and I still got to about 70% of the games living in the Greek islands. Got to all the European games, a lot of the home games at the Arsenal.
Lately, all of our games are in Greece anyway.
Yeah, well, that's it. Hey, how convenient was it for me, Olympiakos, you know? But I got to Baku for the Europa League final a couple of years ago, which was an interesting journey, to say the least. I was in Poltava with the lads, with a few of the lads. I don't know if you remember a couple of seasons ago, we played Poltava away in the Europa League.
That seems to be about the hardest one to get to of any of them, because it's not even Kiev. It's Kiev and then like a 2-hour train ride from there.
Mike, the interesting thing is he asks, do we remember? My question is,
does he remember?
But the funny thing about Poltava was we got there a couple of days before the game, and then they declared martial law in Poltava because the Russians were getting aggressive across the border, and they moved the game from Poltava to Kiev. So
that's right.
We struggled all the way to Poltava. We then had to get to Kiev. Great trips, though. Wouldn't change it for the world. Boys.
Yeah, and that's the thing I'm always preaching about Arsenal is that it is not about. Well, it is about the game, but it's not just about the game. It's about the process, about the people, about the the stories that who won that Poltava game and by how much. I'm pretty sure we won. I have no clue what the score was, but had I been there, I would have remembered the experience for damn sure. So
yeah. Well, it was a very important game, Mike. That away game, when it was moved to Kiev, was the night that Bukayo Saka made his debut for the Arsenal. So that sticks in a memory, when a lad like that shows his face, straight away that you've got an exciting prospect on your hands. But you are so right, my friend. It's all about this is what it's all about, football. Talking to guys like you tonight, and having a laugh and a beer. And sometimes the football becomes secondary, We're massive fans, but sometimes the football's secondary to friendships, and that's the way it should be,
Yeah, and I preach that all the time, and for sure that's what carries me through during times when the football is shit, because if the football shit and all you care about the football is the football, you're not going to have anything to fall back on. But when the football is not, when it's shit, but the people aren't, you at least are still interested, engaged, and have something to fall back on. Speaking of something to fall back on, Fergus, you are
brilliant.
If you don't know about Guns and Yellow Ribbons, please go over it. It's both professionally done, even though it has unprofessional people on it. It's a great podcast, pregame shows, weekly shows, and what you've done that a lot of YouTubers and podcasters haven't is really kind of combined with a presence on Facebook. You have a very strong, presence and interest in the community of Gooners on Facebook, with a Facebook group, at least one that I can think of, maybe more. And so tell us kind of how that, did that predate the pod? Did the pod predate that? And tell us how to find those communities and whether it's just open for anyone to join or not.
Well, the communities. If you mean the communities, the Arsenal Fans Forum community, is that what you're talking about?
That one, yeah, that, and I think, I don't know. Maybe it's that you're just an active poster in a lot of them, but you host one.
I've been working at home for too long.
No, but it's good, man. Getting the conversation going, participating in it, but
just for the benefit of Owen, I'm very intelligent. Okay, Owen.
He's got his pen out. I better not spit anything out on the screen.
So I'm going to get 2 pens. Just put them right here.
Arsenal Fans Forum is what originally started, 5-6 years ago, as a Facebook group. It started randomly. I was in the service station. It's a spin-off from Arsenal Tickets, where Pooja Shah had people commenting after Galatasaray had bombarded the pitch with flares and so on. And she said, look, let's keep this page to tickets only. So I was sitting with my iPad in a car, because I'm normally in normal world in a car. And I set up this group, didn't know what I was doing, and Arsenal Fans Forum was formed. From there, I was in touch with Mike Gonçalves, who is an Arsenal and Benfica fan because of his Portuguese heritage over in America. And he asked, what do you think about starting a podcast? I'm thinking about doing something. I said, well, I've made a fool of myself a few times on YouTube, drunk outside the George, trying to get a bit of YouTube traffic up. It just is fun, shits and giggles.
Never.
Sort of thing. Yeah.
Fergus FTV.
and from there he came along and said, I was thinking about doing something. And we started November 2017. We started Guns and Yellow Ribbons as a podcast, and it was audio. And probably about 18 months ago, we went on to video. We had to dig deep. We had to get people like Trev on.
You almost dug to the center of the earth for that one.
Yeah.
Oh, double pronged attack.
But listen, all jokes aside,
he's good for a pint of beer at least. So he has to be there.
But listen, all joking and all ribs aside, our mantra from the very, very, very start was by Arsenal fans for Arsenal fans. Myself and Trevor, we sit here, we sometimes have a beer, we sometimes don't. Whoever joined us, and Mike, you've joined us, and everybody else who's joined us before, it is just genuine Arsenal fans. We're not out there to make a fortune. We're not out to be famous. We're not out to be a League Gunner, a Troops, a bloody Robbie. And listen, those people have done what they've done, and fair play to them. I don't take anything away they've done. I don't agree with some of them, the modus operandis, but they've done what they've done. We're not into it for that. We're having a hobby, and we're sharing a hobby online. If we get 2 people watching and we get 100 people watching, it's brilliant. Does that answer your question?
Absolutely. Just wanted to make sure we got everything out there. So, and it also gave us another 5 minutes of avoiding the inevitable, which is talking about yesterday.
I say we just.
Do we want to get to that?
Today. I think I'm perfectly fine with that. Let's just ignore the game for the time being.
No, it's kind of we're contractually obligated. I don't know what contract, but we got to talk about it in the podcast, where I'm going to toss it over to Mikey to run us through the game and get our thoughts on a handful of stuff.
All right, Trev, I'll go ahead and start with you, sir. Starting lineups, always a fun time to be online when they announce the squad. As we all know, lots of surprises. Any initial thoughts, anything that stood out to you, and were you against anything when you first saw the starting lineup?
Look, mate, you just nailed it in that Arteta's got this habit of surprising us every week with his team selections. You know, he always sticks one or two in, and you think, what's happening here? And this week was Alba and Laka playing in the same side. I don't think they work together. I like both of them. I don't think they work together. That's been shown. But Arteta picked him yesterday, so I had faith in it. You know, I said on our podcast before the game, I had faith in him, but it didn't work, did it? And he had to make the changes in the end. So that was the thing that worried me most yesterday was that he picked Laka and Alba to play in the same side. And probably our most inventive player, Smith Rowe, was on the bench. The other thing that I don't like about the selection is that I'm old-fashioned when it comes to centre-backs, Mike. When it comes to centre-halves, I think the best centre-halves have always been pairs. They play in pairs and they get to know each other and they feed off each other. And the more they play together, the more they learn, you know. So I was hoping that he would stick with Gabriel and Louise yesterday, but he didn't. He went for Louise and Mari, which, you know, both very good players. But I just wish he would be a little bit more consistent with his centre-back pairings as well. So, yeah, that was my thoughts on the selection before the game, mate.
It felt like he was doing that with the center backs. We had the Holding Mari pair and we had the Louise Gabriel pair, and we've seen some blurring of those lines a little bit, especially since, you know, Holding can't get a game all of a sudden out of nowhere. But yeah, what do you think about Chambers in over Bellerin and Cedric on the right back side?
Who, me again?
Yeah.
No problem with Chambers, mate. No problem with Chambers. I knew he was a good player before he got injured. He's had a terrible run with injuries. So he's not really had the chance to develop. Obviously, he's developed as a person and he's developed as a player, but he hasn't had a consistent run in the side to allow that development to go the next step, you know, to turn him from a good player that we're not sure about into a good, consistent player. So if he wants to give him a run at right back, I've got no problem with it. Bellerin, I've never had the ump with Bellerin. I've got no problem with Bellerin. But I think it's weaker on the right-hand side. Cedric came in and he's not done too bad either. But whoever he chooses, if he's going to put Chambers in at right back, give him a bit of a run in the side, give him half a dozen games and let's see how he really develops into the role. I thought he did all right yesterday. I thought, as a matter of fact, I thought he was up there for my player of the match, if I'm honest, Chambers. Yeah.
Yeah, he was definitely brilliant. So one thing that kind of conspiracy theory here for you, Fergus. This is the first time you're on a podcast with me, so bear with me because I get a little crazy sometimes. I can't help but believe every time I think back to Arteta's initial comments of, hey, either you're on the boat or you're not. And he's very team-oriented. If you're not with the group, you're kind of out. And something I've been overthinking, potentially, most likely, is the fact that around the time when Bellerin got those links about being okay with leaving the club, he linked with PSG. That's when I've noticed we started seeing him a little bit less. And little by little, Chambers started seeing a little bit more playtime. Now, am I reading too much into this here, Fergus, or is there anything to say that Bellerin, being completely healthy, wasn't even on the bench for this game?
Bellerin being completely healthy is
excluding the veganism, of course.
No. Yeah, well, you're Californian, so you'd be into that, like, you know. So, you know, I've just had 16 steaks and
that's my thing. I eat vegetables. Yeah.
Weird. Bellerin being completely healthy. Unfortunately, I think Bellerin's injury that his ACL that he had, what was it, 2.5 years ago, he's never come back to the form of where his potential was. And his form of where his potential was still an improving player that looked like could be an awesome player, but he's not got there. I think your conspiracy theory is probably a little bit excessive. I think Arteta is being very wise and very sensible. Cedric is clearly an obvious backup and clearly works very, very well with a bang average Pepe that is improving, unfortunately, against my view. But for him to introduce Chambers in the last game, I think was ingenious, if I'm honest. He was involved in 3 crosses. Okay, 2 of them were own goals, but he was involved in 3 crosses. He, technically speaking, had 3 assists. He just ran up and down that side, that side of the pitch, and he done absolutely everything he was asked to do: defend, run up the pitch, cross the ball. Something Bellerin hasn't been able to do in his 6-7 years. Listen, I love Bellerin. I think Bellerin would make a great captain for Arsenal because he understands what Arsenal's about. He's got Arsenal in his blood and his veins and everything else. But no, just move him on. Somebody wants 30 million, 20 million, just...
Oh, I'd rip their hand off. Talking about blood and veins and stuff, I would rip their hand off.
Sadly, Mike, I would rip their hands off, but it is sadly. I will say sadly.
And Fergus has ripped many people's hands off before. He knows how to do it. So you think that
Chambers initial reaction, like this man's hurt people before. My initial reaction myself.
He's very calm, very very kind of paternal, but then don't put your hands anywhere near him. The insertion of Chambers into that lineup was very defensible if you look at it from the traditional. West Ham's got height; they cross the ball. We need a taller defender. But the amazing thing about Chambers' play on Sunday was it was more impressive from it. I mean, his defending was fine. I mean, look,
he was better than defensively.
We go down 3-0. You're never going to look at our defenders and say, "Hey, they're doing a great job." But I don't recall any of those goals. I mean, the second one was a complete failure systemically through the entire team, but it happened on the left side of the pitch that we were defending. Chambers defensively sound, offensively incredible, and that's what I wouldn't have really expected from him. He's proven the narrative about him being slow or limited completely wrong. And again, the thing I love to say about Chambers is that he doesn't step a foot wrong. He's not going to blow you away with flashiness, but as long as you are doing all of the right things in the way you're supposed to be doing them, you're going to put in a shift and it's going to be recognized. And he was up there with some of the others we'll talk about in a bit for man of the match for me. So, I'd be fine with it with positional kind of tactical awareness of what the other team's strengths are, switching out Cedric and Chambers in that position to see who better fits.
Bulgarian Gooners says he's one of the few assets we could cash in on. Does he mean Chambers or does he mean Bellerin? Because
I think he's talking about Bellerin because his earlier comment was I think Bellerin's off in the summer, and it's an interesting comment. I agree with that. I also think that a lot of people have said Chambers clearly isn't going to be on this club, and he's still young enough. He has some value. Chambers' value is to our club going forward. Bellerin's value is to sell him for maybe a little bit over market price for what he's giving us in hopes that he can rediscover his career going elsewhere.
I agree. I keep Chambers for at least another year because you can have him as a squad player and then you can backfill there afterwards with a replacement for Bellerin if you move Bellerin on.
And he plays 4 positions. He plays center back positions, right back, and he can play defensive mid, although we don't know how that would work in an Arsenal setup. But I mean, he's versatile enough. Bellerin can do one thing and not as well as he used to be, injuries, whatever. But I think he could still make a nice impression on a team in France or Spain, and I think that's exactly what he should go do.
Mike Hertz asked me how long has the podcast been going. I said November 2017, and not long after that, I came along and used the phrase Bellerin couldn't cross himself in church. And Bellerin is fantastic at running up the wing. Bellerin can't cross himself in church, and Bellerin is always missing in the area he's meant to be covering defensively, and ends up exposing Holding, Louise. Asterisk change whichever centre back is meant to be covering from there.
Big statement, Fergus.
I've always maintained by it, Trev.
Big statement. Firstly, Chambers was picked yesterday, I think, because his physical ability. He's a more physical defender. He's what we might call more of an old-fashioned British defender. You know, he's a bit taller. He carries a bit more physicality about him than probably, and he's a bit more imposing than Cedric and Bellerin. I don't quite hate on Bellerin so much. Yeah, Bellerin's one asset when he was coming through the ranks at Arsenal was his pace. One of the greatest tackles I ever saw in a game of football was Bellerin probably making 50 yards on a player running back to poor tackling, you know. And I think his injury has robbed him of that. And so it's robbed them.
It was against Chelsea, right?
Asset.
Yeah.
But I don't think we can blame. I think our weaknesses have been down the right-hand side this year. But I don't think we can blame Bellerin solely for that. I don't think we can say that Bellerin is the sole cause of our weaknesses down that side. You know, we've struggled greatly down there. And I thought we looked at our very best when we moved Saka over to the right and played him in front of Cedric. I thought that strengthened it up greatly. So yeah, I think Bellerin's time is probably up. I like the lad, but I can't put as much blame on his shoulders. I can understand why Fergus says it, you know, but I can't place as much blame on his shoulders as maybe Fergus does.
Yeah, I mean, unlike most Arsenal podcasts, we don't want him dead. We just want him to move on to another team, and good luck to him. I mean, you know.
No, I think something that...
Listen, I did say, I think he's captain material. I think he has got Arsenal running through his veins. I do think he's a quality Arsenal player. But unfortunately, that injury, I think, has done too much for him to be good enough for an average Arsenal in a really hard Premier League.
Would you trust Chambers, Samir asks, over Mane versus Mane or Sterling? Look, Mane and Sterling are good. If it's between the three people we have, I trust Chambers versus them a lot more than I trust Bellerin at this point.
Cedric.
So, I mean, I'm comparing Chambers to Bellerin. Cedric might be the right choice there, but yeah, I mean, to the extent that you can trust any of those three right backs who are not, you know, no one's going to consider them top five right backs in the Premier League. I would trust Chambers quite comfortably against them. Doesn't mean he'll put them in his pocket, but I think they do well.
Another thing that Samir brought up earlier today in the chat was Chambers down to his last year of his contract. So, considering that we've already handed out a few extensions in the form that they're talking about David Luiz, they extended Holding. It's kind of a curious one that the fact that they haven't quite worked on it. I mean, it could just very well just be being saved and put to the side until the end of the season. But the fact that they haven't renewed it is kind of amazing to me. To be completely honest with you, gentlemen, I've always seen Chambers as center back.
You don't think that? Sorry, I'm going to pipe up because I do this all the time.
Go for it.
Do you not think that the reason he's given him a run out, if he's down to his final year, he's been on that long injury, he's only come back in December, he's had little or no appearances whatsoever. It would be shameful to see, obviously, a player that's good enough to be at a Premier League level. He done really well at Fulham. He was voted player this season or whatever at Fulham when he was there on a year-long loan. He's very versatile, as Mike Feinberg said. Do you not think it's not the right thing to give him a run out and then at the end of this season you go, I'll tell you what, we'll give you a 1 year plus 1 year extension, and you know he's on a pittance of money in comparison.
He's on $50,000 a week and his contract expires at the end of next season. What's the harm in extending him now?
I'll rephrase it. He's not on the pittance of money in comparison to Rob Holding. He's on $12,500 a week.
Look, boys, I know I'm drifting off the subject here a little bit, but you're talking about extensions and contracts. This summer will be massive. This summer will be huge at the Arsenal. Arteta put it out in an interview yesterday. You boys in America may not have seen it. Arteta did an exclusive interview for Sky Sports yesterday. It wasn't on the television. It was on the app, on the website.
It's on CFAX
in America.
It was on. I saw it on CFAX.
Yeah, it was an amazing.
I'm too young to know what CFAX is. I'm sure of that.
What's CFAX? I don't remember CFAX. But I'm expecting lots and lots of movement this summer. Lots and lots of comings and goings, and extensions and terminations. And I think we may even get a few shocks, boys. I think Arteta's got a plan in his head, and he's one of these blokes that's going to stick to it. These Spanish, they're quite resilient in their ways, which can be good, it can be bad. Let's hope it's good for us. But I think this summer is probably the most important summer we've seen at Arsenal Football Club for 10, 15 years or more. We're going to see some massive progress, I'm sure. I'm hopeful.
I'm right there with you, Trev. I certainly hope so. And my thing about extending Chambers is whether you see him at Arsenal Football Club 3 years from now or not could be debated. But I'm pretty sure we could extend him without a big pay rise. I'm sure we could extend him and give him an extra year or two at the same wage packet that he's on now at $50,000. And if he ends up being as important for our club as I could see him potentially being, we've done nothing other than preserve or increase his value. And if we move on and upgrade, then, we're not selling a guy in the last year of his contract or letting him leave for free. We're selling a guy with 3 years left on his contract. And that's a tremendous, that's just a stock market play you make to protect your asset. And I think that we'll do that. And I like that he's getting a run at. Either sell him this summer if the plans are really not there, because his value should be at an all-time high, or re-up and just let next year go by before we decide where we're going to sell him or not.
Mike, do you prefer Chambers as a right back? We haven't seen him as Arsenal as a defensive mid. Do you prefer him as a right back, or do you prefer him as a centre back?
I would say he's our. A lot of that depends on what we do with David Luiz over the summer, because right now he's our fifth center back.
So let's dive into David Luiz if you guys can shortly after, because on that subject, I have a question about that. Seeing that he's been playing a considerable amount of minutes, do you think he'll get that extension? To me, Trev, I'll go to you. As of right now, it seems like he has the total confidence as far as David Luiz goes and playing time. He seems like he has the trust of not only Arteta, but everybody within the locker room seems to love him. I know he's a controversial figure in the sense that he'll give you a good run of games and then, oops, there's a mistake that costs us a game. So he splits opinions in that matter, along with a few other players that we currently have in our squad. But on your point of view, what do you made of all this game time that Luis has been seeing, in contrast of holding that recently renewed, and then it looks as if the ink was drying on the paper and said, okay, back to the bench you go, sir?
Yeah, Mike, I am quite surprised at the game time Luis is getting. He's obviously the one that Arteta trusts, isn't he? I'm touching wood as I say this. I'm touching wood. He's not made a Luis style error for some time now. He's been doing really well and looking good. And if we can keep that Luis, I'm very happy with that.
He's almost double-digit games without, or he's maybe 7 or 8 games without actually costing us the entire game.
Absolutely, and taking yesterday out of the equation, our defensive record has been really good, really good. We can't fault our defence up until yesterday, really. Especially over the last 2 weeks, when I think that Arteta must have taken Leno to one side and said, "Hey, stop putting our defenders under pressure with a short ball." I know Arteta would have said to him, "I know it's my idea. This is the way I'm Mikel Arteta. This is the way I want to play the game. I want to play it from the back. I want to play it short. But use a bit of knowledge, use a bit of intelligence, and do not put our defenders under pressure. Especially don't put Granit Xhaka under pressure, because he's rubbish, right?" So it looked like Leno had picked up the last couple of weeks. Luiz has picked his game up. I'm taking yesterday out of the equation. I've not got a problem with our defence. And I didn't think I'd be saying that this season. Yeah. I thought that, it's like we've had a complete reversal this season. Last year we're saying, right, our forwards are sorted. Let's get this defence done. Work on the defence. Now we're thinking the complete opposite. The defence is developing nicely. Don't forget we've got Saliba to come back. And to quote Arteta this week, he said that if Saliba keeps impressing the way he is over there, then he's going to be worthy of a first-team place, possibly. So our problems have reversed. We now can't find a bloody goal scorer for love nor money, So, oh my word, So I'm not too unhappy with the defence. Taking yesterday out of it, I know we're going to talk about it shortly, but up until yesterday, it wasn't too bad for me.
We found a goal scorer finally. His name is Dawson. He plays for West Ham, but he's our leading goal scorer this season.
Made brilliant goals for us. Yeah,
the guy's fantastic.
Okay. Well, yeah.
By the way, about David Luiz,
yes.
I would be okay moving on from David Luiz over the summer, especially with the knowledge that Chambers and Saliba, and get me started on Mavropanos. We have 7 center backs, not including David Luiz, that could, or 6, not including David Luiz, that could be in contention for a spot. And that's, before even talking about the guys in the U23 team that are supposedly coming through. So, I would be fine with that, but I don't, the feeling I'm getting from Mikel Arteta is that Luiz is his constant. And so I can see, unless something really, really drastic happens in the next couple of weeks, I can see, that extension over the summer, or maybe he kind of does a check-in on Saliba, see if Saliba and he can patch things up emotionally or whatever the rift is between the two of them. And if he is coming back, then they'll let Luiz go. If he's not coming back, then they'll keep him. But I would be fine.
Luiz on a rolling 1 year makes sense. Yeah, he's a clown sometimes.
Depends on the wages, though, and whether he'd accept not playing every game. And I hesitate on those two. His wages are going to be 6 digits.
He recently took a pay cut, didn't he? The last contract extension, that was something that got brought up where he had that.
No one takes a pay cut.
Well, I thought he had like a horrible. I guess at least that was the link.
I think he's on 110, 120. And Kay Vile comes along and talks about Saka in the chat on 10 grand a week. Mate, 8 times that, please. 8 times that.
It was last renewal. Yeah, you're right. I think he was on 10 grand when he first initially started, but he did.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did get a massive bumper deal, which considering that he's essentially, I think, well, now that Odegaard is here, he might put a run for his money. But most of the season, you could easily say Saka was our best player of the team. So without him, without our star boy, it doesn't seem like our team and our offense actually clicks. So the fact that he's on 80, it's still very reasonable. And the fact that he's from our youth setup, he just gives us that vibe.
Nice, but the issue with it, he's on a short-term 80. He's on like a 3-year contract rather than a 5-year contract that he was renewed.
Saka's showing as being on 10 grand a week on just about any Spot Track and otherwise, but I am quite sure that his new contract was for a lot more than 10 grand.
Trust the gerbil, he knows.
So, yeah. Salary increased from 3 to 30, so we never know. Even the gerbil doesn't know the answer to that one. I hate to say it, but
the issue with his contract, whatever he's on salary wise, is his contract was a 3-year extension. But after 18 months, he's down into the last 18 months. He's down to a renegotiation. So if he continues playing the way he's in the form he's in, he can command whatever he wants.
That's true. That's true, because someone will come in and say, "We'll give you a 200."
Yeah.
How bad do you want to stay at Arsenal?
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah. Well, at the end of the day, that's the type of issue we're going to encounter when we have a player of this caliber, right? I mean, if you look at Cristiano Ronaldo and Messi, who, for the record, I'm not saying Saka's at that level. He's obviously far superior than them. But moving forward, it's kind of like those guys got into the habit of renewing their contract almost every 2 years, and essentially they were upping each other when it comes to wages. So I think it's in a weird way, it's kind of a good issue to have, having a player of that quality. Where it's going to really come back and bite us in the rear end is if we continue, and Mike E did a financial podcast with the numbers that recently came out, where it might come back and bite us in the rear end is if we do not get into Champions League, or even worse, not even Europa League football. That might really make the ownership in the club have to function in a different way, where we're all very hopeful that we don't have to go down that road.
Our hope is that we have the players that require 150 to 200,000 a week in wages because they're that good. What we have to stop doing is giving those wages to people like Willian and maybe David Luiz next season. And we cannot have this bloated wages based on seniority situation we can't be paying high wages to players who may end up being a steady hand and a veteran presence, but may also just be not fit to be on the pitch. Whether and I don't mean from a health standpoint. I just mean like what we've seen for most of the season with Willian. I mean, the way you talk yourself out or price yourself out of being able to retain a Saka, an ESR, those types of players as they get better, is by having too many bloated contracts like the one we have with Willian, Louise, and have done in the past with other players. And so we have to be a little smarter about the people we're offering big wages to, because we're going to have some bumper pay rises that we're going to need to give out over the next few years. And if we've committed all that money to players 28 and over, 30 and over, 32 and over, we got problems coming. So
if I was Arteta, I'd be saying to Tierney, Saka, and ESR, get in my office on Monday morning, boys. There's a 5-year contract. Fill your own figures in. Because you're the future of the club. You're the boys we want to keep,
Is Kia in that meeting? or is he banned from that meeting? Because
they did that with Martinelli, yeah? Martinelli contract is 5 years worth. The last time they renewed it, I believe.
Yeah, he's on 90,000, so
he'll get more game time now. There was a massive read into yesterday's game. And I know we're going to come on to it. There was a massive read there in that we needed a goal. We're losing 3-2. We've had more of the game and we need a goal, badly need a goal. And what does Arteta do? He takes his main striker off. When we need a goal and brings Martinelli on. There's a massive read into that. You could talk probably for a whole podcast just about that situation and what it means and how it might develop, Just before you move on from defenders, though, boys, you mentioned Mavropanos, right? And it's a strange case with Mavropanos, I was at the game in 2018 when Mavropanos made his debut at Manchester United, right? And I was going to the game and we found out the team before the game. It won't surprise you to know I was in a pub in Manchester. And we found out the team, and Mavropanos was named in the side, and we thought, oh my God, we're in big trouble here. Young lad at Man United. And do you know what? He played superb. Put in one of the best centre-half performances I'd seen for Arsenal in years.
He's quite mobile.
Yeah. And then a couple of games later, we played away at Leicester, and I was at that game as well, and Mavropanos got sent off, It was unlucky, but he got sent off. And then the season was over. The season was done. And ever since then, I don't think he's been half the player he was. And I know he got a bit of an injury, but he's still only a young man. But he's a bit baffling. He's a bit confusing, his Mavropanos, because with that game at Manchester, boys, he was good. He was extremely good for a young man. He was.
Do you remember who his centre back partner was that game?
I can tell you. Hold on a minute, caller. He played alongside, believe it or not, Callum Chambers.
That's right.
Yeah.
How do you guys remember this type of stuff?
I just looked it up, but
I was going to say because I'm horrible.
You have the Bible at hand. You have the Bible.
Ah, there you go. Look at that. Cheaters, all of you. Okay, well, yeah. Well, we'll move on to the game. It's always an interesting conversation. I will point out one thing that Sai pointed out in the group that went over my head because I'm horrible at these type of roles, but said if we do end up selling Chambers and Bellerin, it means that we're going to need to sign 2 homegrown players. So that creates a whole different issue, which I guess adds a little bit to the argument that Chambers might stick around.
Academy, which would be homegrown.
Excuse me? Could you repeat
so you could bring Balogun in if he signs. That would cover one of those off. And Chambers, I don't think has gone anywhere immediately.
No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't. And if we brought Mavropanos back, he's homegrown, right? Because of his age when he came here.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, I know we bought him, but I think if you buy them under a certain age, they're homegrown.
I think, or something like that.
Yeah. So I actually don't. This was.
Mikey,
kind of an issue, or over the Kolasinac and possibly Bellerin, and Reece Nelson and Eddie Nketiah are homegrown, but they were never really always in our first team plans anyway. So I think, if there would be more people coming through the academy to take their spot, Aziz or something like that. So I don't think we'll have the homegrown issue next year like we were setting up to this season.
Awesome. Yeah. So we're gonna deep dive into the game. I'll before we go into the nitty gritty of this bittersweet affair, as I like to call it, I will say that for the first time in a long time, something that Trev spoke about earlier was Arteta's interview, saying that he's expecting a really big summer, and for the first time in a very long time, we have players on loan that are actually playing, and you could argue that their stock has only risen. In the form of Saliba, he probably kept his valuation. Mavropanos, he's in the team of the week or team of the season. I've seen him in a few weeks in Germany. Mainsley, aka Ainsley Mason-Lyle, has been playing more consistently. Willock. We have loans that are actually working on our favor this time around, which is a beautiful thing. And in contrast that with what it do and Arteta's been doing, I'm extremely hopeful, to say the least. But to Trev's point, this summer is going to be freaking massive and a heart attack, and I can't wait till we loan a player at deadline day. Gentlemen, let's talk about the game. Trev, I'll go with you, the very first one. First goal, not as upsetting as the second and third, but Lindegaard, the man just seems to know how to harass us. He's a pain in our rear end, and sure enough, anybody but him, I said. And who scored the first one? Lindegaard from a nice shot from just outside the box.
Yeah, it was a decent goal as well, wasn't it, mate? You can't fault him. I mean, I don't like Lindegaard. Lindegaard doesn't like Arsenal, but then not many other people do like Arsenal. We're unique. Not many people like Arsenal because we're special. We are the Arsenal. We are not Arsenal. We are the Arsenal. We're special. So Lindegaard don't like us, but as Arteta said in the after-match interview, you can't play against that. Sometimes you get a goal scored against you and you think, okay, fair enough. We pick the ball up, we jog back to the centre circle and we go again. And that's what we needed to do. And it's exactly what we didn't do, as we now know. But you can't put a case against bad defending or anything for that goal. It was a nice setup, it was a nice pass, and it was a great finish from Lindegaard. End of. And wait a minute, because you know what's going to happen now, mate? I'm going to tell you what's going to happen, right? You're going to go to Fergus and he's going to blame Leno. Wait for it, right? Wait for it.
No. When it comes to, you know what it is? He bigged up our defense a little bit, and I want to hear him. I want to hear the other side of Fergus. So I'm going to give him the second goal, which I'm generally curious. So I wrote down the names because I couldn't believe how many players actually dropped out and just stopped. Oh, there it is. So Saka, Partey, Tierney, Pablo Mari, and Xhaka. 5 players. Completely.
This picture is before the kick was taken, but this is while the ball is in play. You've got that going on.
Well, first and foremost, the foul on Antonio, I thought was very, very, very weak. Okay. So that aside, the foul was awarded to West Ham. The first goal, as Trev said, I don't think we could have done anything about. It was fantastic. I think what West Ham have done in signing Lingard has been inspirational for them as a team. I think he has been a fantastic addition to the West Ham side. But that aside, the second goal, Leno does have some fault in the sense that it was on his near post. He should have covered it better. But he's not totally at fault. The fact of those 4, 5, 6, 7 players that turned their back, left the ball roll on the pitch. The old school, you wouldn't see like an old school Leeds or Man United or something like that. They would have picked up our Bolton or Blackburn on the Sam Allardyce. They would have picked up the ball, put it under their arm and gone, ref, this is F and this is that, F and that. They would have walked up to the ref and argued with the ball on their arm, so they were in control of what's happening with that ball. For the fact that they left the ball run away from them, and then the keeper, Tierney, everybody's sweetheart at the moment, Tierney. Even Tierney's at fault. You cannot pick a player in an Arsenal shirt, shitty blue shirt, by the way, in an Arsenal shirt that is not at fault for lack of focus, not concentration, lack of focus to concede that goal. I did question. We're on our Zoom mic. You failed to join us, you Ethan. But I did question some of the guys on the Zoom that were watching the game with about whether the referee has to give permission for such a quick free kick when the rest of the argument and stuff is going on. Whether the referee should give a nod and a wink, say, yeah, you can take a quick free kick, but technically speaking, in the rules, there is no law to say they can take it quickly. But the ethic of the game would, for me, infer that the referee should, because didn't we see it earlier this season where there was a free kick back?
Yeah, and
quick. Listen, before you jump in and try and defend the point I'm making on that, I still think we fucked up, and we should have been more concentrating.
I'm devastated. I'm truly devastated by what Ferguson just said. Because I actually thought, mate, that for once in my life I was going to agree with you, Fergus. I honestly thought that once you'd finished talking, I was going to agree with you. I know, mate. But you see, the thing is, right, let me just put a different slant on it. Yeah. All those defenders were at fault. Definitely at fault. And we didn't do what every Premier League does nowadays. As soon as a free kick is given in that area, a defending player goes and stands over the ball. Illegally, because they should be retreating 10 yards. But they don't. They always put a player to stand right over the ball, and we didn't do that. And our defence was awful, turned their backs on it. And if I was Arteta, I'd be fining them a week's wages each. But at the end of the day, the reason they scored that goal, the final reason they scored that goal was because Leno wasn't good enough. Leno let a ball go in. Don't tell me he wasn't set for it. You watch it back. I've watched it back. He was set for that, Leno, and he let that ball go right under his hands at the near post. Poor goalkeeping. And I'm a massive fan of Leno and a big supporter of him. But I thought that the final cause of the goal, the build-up was all bad by us. But the final reason the ball went in the back of the net was because Leno let it go through his hands.
And Trev, I'm just trying to be balanced in my view, and because I do come out and I question Leno in his distribution skills sometimes. I do question Leno. He done it again in this game where he ran out and he could have caught a ball and he punched it back. And he parries so many balls onto the penalty spot, and he punches the ball into the central area in the middle of opposing players to give him an opportunity to just pop shot back at him because he's been lying on the ground. And that's why I come along. I didn't slate Leno, but in reality, the defenders are lackadaisical, but it's a schoolboy error. The keeper should have saved that.
Yeah, agree. I'm agreeing with Fergus. That's it. I'm going. I can't agree with Fergus. I'm off.
It's like crossing the streams on Ghostbusters. You're not supposed to do it.
Fucking hell.
But
there's some strange light in the sky.
We will not make that mistake again on a free kick. By the way, that was one teaching moment that we do not need another one of, and I would be absolutely shocked and devastated if we see that happen again.
Absolutely.
You're going to see somebody on that ball. It'll probably be Kieran Tierney next time because he's not going to have enjoyed him being 2 feet from the ball with his back turned.
That was a big surprise to me that Tierney dropped it because you watch that. They started doing these sort of watch-alongs or player cam sort of things where you just hear like Leno in goal is on Tierney, where you could hear everything they're talking about. And Tierney is such an old school English footballer. I know he's Scottish, but like you understand what I mean. He's old school sort of footballer in his beliefs.
He won't need Arteta to have said anything. He'll look at that picture that I just showed because I sent it to him. Yeah. He'll look at that and be like, "Not good enough. Never again." And and I hope that is the case. And you know, they, as an aside, not to blame it, not to try to excuse it, but as an aside, they've got to do something about the situation where the referee is walking out, pulling his spray can out just to basically do a stoppage of play, 10-yard type of thing. Now, if West Ham wants to take that kick quickly, they should be able to, and I think ultimately that's why he let it go. But there's got to be some sort of point of emphasis of
what was the game that was a goal was scored? Wasn't it West Brom or Wolves or something like that? That was a goal.
Yeah, it was a free kick from outside the box. It was
yeah.
I think, was it Brighton and West Brom or something like that?
Yeah, it was Brighton.
And
yeah,
it was just, well, I mean, that was, not only was he wrong, he did blow the whistle to take the kick.
And he blew the whistle after the ball crossed the line, and then
the defensive team got the benefit of that one because the quick kick was taken legally after the whistle had been blown, and they then went back and tried to act like it wasn't legal and the whistle hadn't been blown, and so not quite the same situation, but it surrounded a quick kick. And you know, there's just got to be some sort of better rule of when you're allowed to do that and when you're not, because you can't just assume they're not going to take a quick kick. The referee's acting like it's not going to be quick because he's getting ready to take the spray can out. Is it possible the defense reacts to that, sees that, kind of slows down a little bit? Inexcusable, but maybe that influences it a little bit.
It is a distraction. I agree, Mike. It is a distraction. Yeah. Definitely. You spotted that as well. You know.
He was either taking the whistle to his mouth or taking the spray can out. I think he was taking the spray can out.
Back to get the spray can out, and then they took the free kick. So there is a distraction there.
The dodgy on the left-hand side.
Little Matthew Wilder action for you there. But,
it was a series of unfortunate events. A lot of blame to be shared, and something that Mikey said.
Can I do one bookkeeping thing real quick? And I have to do it live on air because I don't think you're seeing the chat. Trev, please talk as much as you can, but when you're not talking, can you mute your mic because we're getting some echo?
Mate, I'm on the phone. Hang on a minute. Yeah, go on then.
Just press. Yeah, perfect. Okay, thanks. Sorry, Mike.
Okay, Trev, going to you. No, I'm kidding. Something that Mikey brought up on our podcast a few days ago, the day of the West Brom game or the West Ham game, was until the referees figure their own crap out, which I think it's quite frank. I think we all honestly agree that it's not going to happen anytime soon. Arsenal, as a club, the players that are on the pitch need to get better on playing, as Mike said, the game within the game. And the game within the game means grab the ball, stand over the ball, bug the ref, et cetera, et cetera. So I think we got to get a little bit better at that. It's almost an unfortunate part of the game, quite frankly, because, you know, nobody wants to see it. We all see, like, you know, recently just the Aston Villa versus Spurs game. We saw, you know, how Kane went about the penalty. And I'm not even specifically talking about diving. I'm just talking about small things about getting on top of the ball and just being a little bit more vocal with the ref. We've noticed
there's cheating, there's dark arts, there's playing the game, and then there's just bending over, which is what Arsenal tends to do most of the time. I mean, there's levels to this stuff, as they say.
There's levels. There you go. Absolutely. So, Fergus, I'll go to you. Third goal. Initially, I thought it was Antonio, and I'm like, wow, this guy's really not celebrating. Now they're just mocking us. Turns out he wasn't celebrating because he saw that it went off of Soset's foot, and it ended up, you know, being a third goal. At this point in time, all hope was lost. I'm hitting up Mike. I'm like, Mike, can we please not do a show? I don't want to talk about this right now. It was really depressing. It was dark times, to say the very least. Again, just a header. I think if I'm not mistaken, Antonio went over Pablo Mari, was it? Which was a bit surprising.
There was a push in the back. Antonio done a push in the back of Mari or Luis, whoever the center half was. But it was nonchalant. It was nothing. I thought our defenders and again Tierney and the like, they lost their men, but the first and third goal, I can't really criticize. I thought they were really good goals by West Ham. Listen, I'll have to put a caveat in here. I live in East London, Essex, but from East London, and I do have a soft spot for West Ham. I'm an out-and-out Arsenal fan, but if I wasn't an Arsenal fan, I was to come from Ireland today and choose a team to support. If it wasn't Arsenal, I would be choosing West Ham. I think West Ham have done fantastic. No. Hang on. I think West Ham have done really, really well what they've got. I'm also personal friends with some of the coaching team, and I think they've got the same class and history that that Arsenal have in some ways. They've got delusional ideas that they won the World Cup from 1966 because of the few team members that played for England, but. I think those two goals, the first and third goal, the West Ham just deserve credit for it.
It's a good point. So we're gonna expand on the third goal. I mean, Hilsey, did you?
The third goal. I'll leave you guys to expand on. I think it was a great header.
I want to get to our goals. That's what I want to get to.
2 seconds. Two players that West Ham had in that side. Well, Damien Rice, Judas. Damien Rice, who should play for Ireland, was
Declan?
very, very good. And Ronnie made he should have been taken down. But if you look at the Antonio performance and the Souček, a great player, and also the Lingard performance. Antonio, how he's able to be so fast, able to jump up so high and challenge everybody when he's built like a brick shithouse is just, it doesn't make any sense. The guy is just a monster. He's a bit like the Wolves player, Traore. I know he's not at Wolves anymore, but when he was at Wolves, he was able to perform and do stuff that was just physically didn't look possible. Very impressed, and I'll leave it there. I can't criticize on those two goals. Sorry.
I can.
Well, yeah, let's have it because this is a little too much West Ham look for me right now.
I'm speaking.
No. You get where I'm coming from.
I know. I'm just giving. I'm just.
I don't know if I can be associated with him anymore. I thought he was one of my very, very good friends, but I don't know. I'm not so sure now. I might have to seek counselling about my relationship with Fergus. But the third goal, right? The third goal, if you just take it back 20 seconds, what causes that third goal? Leno with that stupid little chip out wide to our defender out wide. Leno chips the ball out wide to our defender on the left. Then we don't touch the ball again. They cut it off. We don't touch the ball again. It's a great header for Antonio, but he lapsed. Leno played that stupid chip to a player under pressure out wide. And that
but I'm not allowed to flag off Leno, am I, Hilsey? Am I?
You what, mate? I can't hear you.
I'm not allowed to slag off Leno, am I?
I just said to you, I'm agreeing with you on Leno. What's the matter with you? You're doing me.
We're having
actually, you are. You're talking.
The Gooners podcast, home of the domestic.
Yeah, this is a whole man. We're witnessing the breakup right now. Oh no.
That's it.
That's it. We found out that Fergus forced West Ham. You agreed with him today. Renamed Declan Rice.
Yeah, we've also learned that Damien Rice and Jesse Lindegaard are the best players that don't exist on West Ham that have ever existed. So,
lovely stuff.
So let's get to our goals because we're at an hour 5.
We scored 2. This is amazing. I mean, after 3-0, I was
scored 1.
Yeah, technically we only scored 1. They scored 1.
First, I am not going to let you deprive Lacazette from this first goal that Lacazette scored.
It was hitting the corner flag.
He did. He totally
it wasn't
did.
that wide. It wasn't going to go that wide. It was going wide, but you can't take that away from him when it's that close and it's on goal. That he, I disagree with that being taken away. Even though I know the letter of the law, it was if that was deflected closer to the goal line, sure, but it's a bang bang play. That belongs to Lacazette in my mind.
I just been called Mike Jr., which is the highest honor.
We've been trying to figure out how to distinguish between Mike and when someone else is talking to refer to us, we just call you Junior.
I just got Avers and Hertz.
Yes.
Just call you Junior because no one's ever called me Junior before. So, and I'm not seeing that coming anytime soon. So,
let's see. Brilliant pass from Odegaard late in the first half. When honestly, the way that the first half was going, I didn't think we were going to get anything. But after that third goal that West Ham put through, it just flipped switch. We saw a completely different Arsenal the last 5-10 minutes of the first half, which carried on into the second. But how important was that goal? I want to say Lacazette goal because that's what my note says. So
Go ahead.
Lacazette goal. How important was that Lacazette goal off of that Odegaard pass going into the half? Because as silly as it sounds, right, Mike, just psychology, right? Just going into a half, 1-0, 2-0 down, 3-0 down, you get 3-1. And then all of a sudden you're just like, we're a goal away of being really into this game. So how surprised were you, man? I mean, it seemed like we just pulled it out of nowhere. We just flipped the switch. I don't know what happened. If Arteta started yelling at everybody again, like he used to, giving pass by pass instructions. But yeah, Lacazette with the volley.
Are you asking me?
Yes, sir.
Look, it was so vital to get that point, but get that goal before the first half was over. I mean, you go into the first half down 3-0, and the talk in the dressing room is completely different. I would imagine, and I mean, what we saw from that point on was the typical Arsenal gear change, and we've seen it in both directions. That's so maddening because we've seen in 75 minutes against Tottenham, we've seen 45 minutes against Wolves. In the last 55 minutes against West Ham, what we're capable of doing and what these players in need of improvement as they are capable of doing. It's just that they don't. They just shut off, and that's the inconsistency. That's on Arteta as much as anybody, in my mind, because of the fact that these players aren't getting as motivated for West Ham despite their place in the table. Burnley, Aston Villa, as they should. What'd you say?
All right. Do you not think team selection had a big impact on that? Would you have started Lacazette and Aubameyang together? There's loads of questions I got on it. But
I mean, those are puzzles that are really, really hard to solve. I look at it more globally and say this team, whatever it was, this team that's put out there, they're good enough to win the game. They are professional enough to know what this game meant, and yet they came out and shit the bed for the first 35 minutes. So, what's the explanation? But yeah, it is that game at 3-0 at halftime. It's easy to just roll over and say our goal is now to try to keep this close, keep this from being a cricket score. But at 3-1. And the last 10 minutes after that goal, I think were promising as well. It gave the team what they needed to have to go into the second half, believing they could win.
I'm just going, boys. I'm trying to jump in between mute and my mic. That you're right, but that goal, the Lacazette goal. And I'm with you, Mike. It was a Lacazette goal. There's no way it was an own goal. That's a Lacazette goal for me all day long. It was so important, and it lifted us, didn't it, just before half time. And the fact that we scored it, we didn't capitulate, was a shock to me, because when we went 3-0 down, I thought we are in big trouble here. We're in massive trouble. But we scored that goal, and the bonus was that after half time we came out and we continued that momentum, didn't we? This is where Arsenal were frustrated this season, because when we're good, we're very, very good, aren't we? You just mentioned the Tottenham game. 3/4 of the Tottenham game, we played amazing football, and parts of the Wolves game, and we've just not been converting it into goals. But for us to go 3-0 down, and for Lacazette to score that goal, and then for us to have the half-time break, I actually thought that the half-time break came at the wrong time for us, really, because we'd built the momentum, and then the whistle came, and we went in, and I thought, well, first 10 minutes of the second half. This is where we're going to learn a bit more about our team today. And we were fantastic. We were absolutely fantastic. And we thoroughly deserved to get back into the game the way we did. So, yeah. And at the end, we could have won it, couldn't we? So
Peter Drury, who we had on the pod earlier today, and he was commentating on the game yesterday. And, first of all, he said that was the most fun I've had calling in a game in a little while because as a neutral, I mean, he's a Watford supporter. He just loves football. And he said that was a game for a neutral to just fall in love with. But he said there is no question in my mind that game had another 10 minutes in it. Arsenal would have won 4, maybe 5-3. The game was that tilted by the end. The only thing to save them, you're muted now. The only thing to save West Ham was the final whistle, really.
Sorry, I'll put myself on mute. The only thing I was going to say is that game could have easily been 6-6. It was one of those games, a fantastic game for a neutral. The interesting thing I would like to know is you talked about like Aubameyang and various things, but Lacazette made that statement after the game, and he came along and said that the players didn't trust the manager's plan.
That's not what he said. He said they didn't follow the manager's plan.
He didn't respect, I believe.
Respect.
And
that left the ability to kind of take that one of two ways. And I am quite sure the way that he meant that was we did not appropriately respect the plan of the manager, and us not carrying it out is why it didn't work well. I think he took one for Arteta.
Which is how I viewed it. I didn't think it was a moment that Lacazette was trying to undermine. For a second, I thought, hang on, is he trying to undermine Arteta?
Yeah, it's one of those language issues.
Yeah. No, he absolutely was supporting Arteta there.
I think he was, Trev. I think he was. But what should Arteta and Lacazette, who acted like a captain, unlike our captain, who was vacant of his position, what should they do to address that situation if the players aren't listening to the instruction they're given by the manager?
Thanks for the arm bar.
That was good. Yeah, we have this thing on the pod where it's the captain's arm bar, not the captain's armband. It's a long story.
That's a really short story. I call it an arm bar instead of an armband about 3 months ago. Mike, he hasn't
American.
down yet.
I like saying it's a long story because I didn't want to embarrass you. I was just like, it's this complicated.
Because I have a feeling it's in my head. I'm going to eventually call it an arm bar again. So, okay. So Fergus,
Fergus, are you asking kind of whether there's a change needed with that arm bar?
Well, first and foremost, there's a load of questions that could go around that. But first and foremost, my first question is about how does the manager address the issue around people not respecting, listening, acting upon his instruction, whichever the exact wording was. But I think it was respecting the manager's instruction. How does he address that? And shouldn't Lacazette, if he's a leader and a player, shouldn't he and other players, Aubameyang included, shouldn't they come along and say, hang on to the younger players, this is what the boss said. Do what the boss said.
I think what Lacazette was basically saying is he gave us instructions. We failed to follow them, not because we didn't know or understand them. We just didn't physically execute. And as far and I think his point was, as the game went on, we began to put a little bit more faith into and effort into making sure we did those things, and it worked. Whether that's true or not, Lacazette did. You asked what Arteta needs to do about it. I think Arteta did exactly what he needed to do about it, which is to have Lacazette come out after the game and put the blame on the players instead of on the coach. Again, you could believe whether that's true or not. It depends kind of on how you fall on Arteta versus the players or both. But I think that's kind of how it was handled. And we don't want to keep hearing that from Lacazette every 2 games, because then it's not an accidental failure to respect the thing. It's just this chronic thing that we keep seeing. But I think that was handled pretty well as well. I mean, the man management and
I think it was handled well.
It's getting better.
The way I read it,
Go on, Trev.
the way I read it was the statement that Lacazette made, I read that as being more a specific statement that addressed a situation that we found ourselves in. I didn't take it as a generalised statement saying that we are disobeying or we don't do what the manager tells us all the time. I think I read it as being a specific statement to a situation that happened in that game. We didn't do as Arteta had asked us to do, i.e., we didn't close down on the free kick. We turned our backs on the ball. We didn't keep our concentration levels up in that situation. And I'm hoping that Lacazette was referring more specifically to that. Lacazette's a clever man. Lacazette, he's not the greatest striker we've ever had, but I don't know one Arsenal fan that dislikes Lacazette. I respect him, I do, for the way he conducts himself and the way he goes about his business. And don't forget, he's Lacazette, under the back end of Wenger, spent a long, long time sitting on the bench, a long, long time not
getting pulled off every game in the 65th to 70th minute.
Absolutely.
Sorry, that doesn't work in English.
What? I didn't hear that, thankfully.
What, pulled off?
Yeah.
Well, look, he never looked happy about it, but he also never threw a strop. How's that? Never threw a strop about it. That was particularly obvious. So, consummate professional, and whether you believe that he should be sold or not, he's another one of those players who probably still has sell-on value, might end up declining if we hold on to him too long. It's this, do we cash in on the asset? Do we keep it? Whatever you think about him, though, I don't think there's anybody that's anti Lacazette as a good servant to the club during the time that he's been here.
Mike Jr., do you think that Lacazette and Aubameyang can work together? You like that, don't you? Do you think
couldn't do it?
Lacazette and Aubameyang can work as a pairing, or do they have to rotate? Pepe came on, Martinelli came on. They made an impact in the game. So I'm going into host mode, aren't I?
No worries.
Who?
So, Fergus, I'm gonna say
the long and short of my question is Aubameyang good enough to be playing at the minute? Really?
So I'm going to save the Martinelli conversation till a little later on, but it's going to be towards the end of the game. So we will
later on. I mean,
oh yeah, sorry.
Trev's got to wake up for work soon.
He's on mute.
As far as Aubameyang and Lacazette go, I don't like Aubameyang playing on the left or the right in general. I rather see them rotate, and both strikers are extremely different in their approach of the game. Lacazette's a lot more involved. He's much more willing to work for the team. Aubameyang is a little bit more of a luxury player, and he needs the team to work for him, to feed him the balls for him to execute and score. So personally, no, I never want to see both of them playing. And I understand that Aubameyang has achieved a lot of goals out from the wings. It's just not my cup of tea. So
you're the Dr. Seuss of Aubameyang. You're like Dr. I do not like him on the left. I do not like him on the right. I do not like him on the wing. I do not like him.
There you go. Yeah, I'd rather see him as a center forward and him rotate in and out with Lacazette. There's different games in which we require the wingers to get more involved, and those are the type of games that I think of Lacazette. Similar to prior to knowing the Aubameyang situation versus Spurs, when I saw Lacazette start, I was like, oh, this is just Arteta's way of getting Saka and Rowe included into the box. I didn't even think so much about, it's Aubameyang that made a mistake and he was dropped. I didn't make it that far. So no, to your point, Fergus, personally, I disagree with playing Aubameyang out wide, and I would just rotate the forwards. Our second goal, which is a Chambers goal. No, I'm just teasing Fergus at this point.
It was a Chambers assist.
It's a Chambers assist. There you go.
He created that whole thing, man.
He created. So, Hilsey, whilst we're talking about Lacazette and how evolved he was in the first goal, also deeply evolved in the second goal, he also essentially did what the West Ham player did in the first half and just took the free kick fairly quickly when everybody was off guard. And it led to Chambers, whipping in a box that would have ultimately hit Aubameyang if Dawson didn't, Dawson would have interfered in the right way. It was a good cross in that sense, but Dawson knocked it in the back of the net. I know we spoke about Chambers just a little bit earlier. I mean, look, the momentum took a massive change at that point in time, and shortly after came the subs. So I'm going to gloss over that first goal, and then enter the third goal. It came in right before a few substitutions, and the introduction of Smith Rowe, because I'm not allowed to call him Rowe anymore because it upsets him, and Martinelli. So again, Lacazette involved in all three goals, and Chambers with another brilliant cross to Lacazette. So I know we were talking about Lacazette just a few seconds ago. Here's the conversation, and I know that this might surprise everybody on this pod, that fans could be a little reactionary sometimes, as you guys know, which is the beautiful thing of being an Arsenal fan or a fan just in general. You're allowed to dream of things. Lacazette, similar to like Luis, is getting on in age. Hilsey, seeing these types of performances that he puts in, seeing that a lot of the younger players in our squad speak very highly of him, is he one of those players that you would consider like given one more year, or do you think it's time to say goodbye to him?
No, I think I honestly like to see Lacazette stay at the club for at least another season, mate. Not looking at the bigger picture, not looking at the fact that he's a decent striker. He's not the best striker. He's a decent striker. You ask there's been interviews with the young players recently about what they've found best about coming into the first team, and they all mention Lacazette. They all mention Lacazette as a guider, as a leader, as someone to go to if they need a bit of advice, and that's really important to us. So no, I want to see Lacazette stay at the club. I don't know about what role he will play and whether he would accept a role where he plays even less than he does now. I don't know. But I don't want to see Lacazette leave the club. I think he's an important asset to Arsenal Football Club in more ways than one. I don't know for sure, but I think his off-field things he does are probably...
Trev, he's got 1 year left.
You what, mate?
He's got 1 year left.
Yep, so we keep him. And how old? I don't even know how old Lacazette is, to be honest.
30.
Yeah, I think he's just turned. He's recently turned 30. I mean, we have to really kind of in order to avoid him leaving on a free, we've got to decide whether we give him an extension or not, which is really kind of the decision that we're talking about.
You're locking down Laka and Aubameyang for the next 3 years. And Aubameyang with his issues that he's gone on at the minute, and Lacazette needing 5 attempts to score 1 goal.
Mate, you've got to put the Lacazette thing and the Aubameyang thing apart. You can't put them. You can't join them up.
But they're attacking forward line.
If Lacazette stays at the club for 7 or 8 years and gives us good service, and he leaves on a free at the end of that, I don't mind that. It's players that we've lost recently that we've paid millions and millions and millions of pounds to that have ended up leaving on a free that haven't been worth a penny of their money. That's the one that frustrates me. I don't mind Lacazette staying another 2 or 3 years and then we lose him on a free. He's given us 7 or 8 years good service. I'm happy with that.
I don't mind that under one circumstance. I don't mind Lacazette doing that and we doing that with Lacazette under one circumstance, and the circumstance is we have to sell Aubameyang. I don't see us having both of them basically burn out the remainder of their productive careers on high wages at Arsenal and leave for nothing. I don't think, and not to mention, I don't know that we can continue to want to have the temptation even to play them both on the pitch at the same time. We have players who can play on the wing now. We've got ESR can play on the wing. We've got Martinelli, who I think they're grooming to kind of take over at the 9, but we've got Pepe who needs to be able to continue his recent good run of form. We even have Willian, who we're just completely unable to move on. I'm seeing Aubameyang as being very difficult to sell, which is why I think Lacazette would be the easier one to sell and get some money back for.
Right.
But by all means, if we could sell Aubameyang, then keep Lacazette. It's almost one or the other after this season for me.
Mike, it's a really valid point you make, Mike. Right, with Aubameyang, and I don't want people to think I'm hating on Aubameyang because I'm one of his biggest fans. Right, because don't forget he carried our club for 2 or 3 seasons. Aubameyang, his goals carried our club when we didn't have players anywhere else. But times change, and Aubameyang for me is a finisher. And if he's not finishing, if he's not scoring goals, he doesn't offer a lot else. And you just hit the nail on the head, mate. We're now in a position where, do you want to be playing a finisher out wide like Aubameyang when we've got much better options to play out wide? Pepe is starting to perform. Willian is starting to perform. You know, we're quick enough to knock players, but we must praise them. And Willian's done nothing wrong the last few games, you know. Saka can play out wide. Smith Rowe can do a job out wide, you know. So if Aubameyang's not scoring goals, then he's not offering us a lot. And so we have to think carefully about what we select. And we definitely cannot. Lacazette doesn't score enough goals to make up for Aubameyang not finishing. And so we can't play them both in the same side. And there was a massive pointer about what's going on with Aubameyang in the Olympiacos game. In that the first chance he missed, he was through on goal, Aubameyang, and it was set up for his trademark finish. We all know Aubameyang's trademark finish. He runs with the ball, he waits for the goalkeeper to commit, and he chips it over him into the net. That's how Aubameyang scores over half his goals. And his first
but also
chance
Saka was guilty. Saka was guilty of the exact same thing. Saka,
Fergus,
you know.
Don't move on to Saka at the minute, mate, because it's an important point here. It's a really important point, right? In that first chance against Olympiacos, Aubameyang didn't go for his trademark finish when it was there to be done. The goalkeeper committed himself. He blasted it. Aubameyang blasted the ball. I've never seen him do it before. He blasted about 4 yards over the bar. And so that tells me something is going on in Aubameyang's head. Something's not right in his head. You know, and he either needs help or he needs dropping until he recaptures his form.
And to me, I agree. It's a temporary issue. I don't think he's finished. I think what you're saying is true, and he'll move past that. But you know, again, and Aston, you know, who's mentioned very intelligently that you know Aubameyang didn't. None of those other guys have won a golden boot playing out left. But at this point, I think the days of him winning a golden boot out left are behind him, and it's the people he's keeping from being on the pitch when he is out left. Because obviously Lacazette will be in the middle when he's out left is what our problem is moving forward. You gotta look forward rather than back at this. And I'm not sure that, you know, I don't know how many of Aubameyang's goals that season that he won, or those 2 seasons that he won, or shared the golden boot were on the left versus in the middle. But whatever it is, our personnel has changed. I think we have to adapt to it.
But you see, Fergus, Mike, Fergus is exactly right. I know the point Fergus was going to make there. And Fergus is nailed on in that it's not just Albert that's been missing chances. Saka has been guilty of it. Odegaard has missed 1 or 2 clear-cut chances that he should have put in the back of the net. And it was another part of Arteta's interview yesterday in that he said, we are creating enough chances to win games. And our challenge is to increase the efficiency in front of goal. And it's true, isn't it? You look at every game we've played this season, we've made lots of chances. And as Fergus just rightly was going to say before I rudely came off, we've made enough chances. And it's not just Aubameyang that's been guilty of missing the chances. We've missed some really easy chances that should have been taken. Not just Aubameyang, Saka, Saka, Odegaard, just to name sort of
Pepe,
and Trev,
Pepe,
we are making improvements. We are now 21 away points this season, which is, and we still got 4 away games still to play. So we're on a greater away points tally than we did last season. We'd done 56 points at the end of last season. I expect we'll end up on 62, 63 points, maybe, looking at our run-in with our last 9 games. There is improvement. We're dog shit still. We are bang average. but the likes of Aubameyang not taking their opportunities, Saka not taking that opportunity, that's shameful, really shameful.
So my 2 cents on the Aubameyang / Lacazette thing is most likely Laca's going to be the one ending up leaving at this point in time. Aubameyang, between his age profile and his wages, I don't think anybody will give us a transfer fee of value that we could actually reinvest. So I think Aubameyang is the player that most likely will be here until the last day of his contract. And, and what happens in these next 2.5 years, you never know. But I think he's the guy that's going to stick around to the end of the contract. So just to wrap it up, Ferguson, you brought it up a little earlier, and Trev, you kind of hinted at it. Martinelli came on for the second game in a row. The last 10 minutes looked very impressive. I've noticed that he's been taking up a little bit more center roles when he makes his runs and he gets himself in the box ready for a tap in. Trev hinted that, no, not hinted, made the point earlier that when we needed that third goal, the person that came on to the game was Martinelli. So there must be some type of confidence there from Arteta to Martinelli, and I know that he hasn't been getting a lot of minutes, and that's frustrated a few fans. So do you think this is a bit of a turning point for Martinelli and Arteta, Ferguson? I've noticed that he has brought Chambers and forgetting the other gentleman that got injured. He brought Chambers back extremely slow in the same sense that he's bringing back Martinelli after a really long-term injury. Do you think any hope we might start to see Martinelli a little bit feature a little bit more often?
Who are you asking at, me or Trev?
You, Fergus.
We've had this discussion several times with Potsy from Gods and Yellow Ribbons and also on Same Old Arsenal. There's a question about whether Arteta actually, for the want of better phrase, trusts or believes in Martinelli. I personally think he is trying to shield him, and from his comments in his press conference, which are always loaded anyway, and they don't make any real sense. But I think the guy's a young guy, and he's come back from a really tough injury, and I think he's trying to ease him back in again. I think they're also, I'm led to believe, within training, trying to change his position from being like a winger to be more number 9 and bring him more as a centre forward and a goal scorer. And I think he'd be perfect at that. Like, you look at Thierry Henry started as a left winger, and we end up in the centre forward. There are certain times that certain players show qualities that managers identify and they can go for. I would like to see Martinelli getting more time. I was disappointed in the West Ham game and the Olympiacos game that he came on at 85 minutes. It's virtually pointless to a certain degree. 10 minutes earlier, he can have some impact. He's just going to be warmed up and then the final whistle is going to go. And that is a frustration I'm finding with Arteta in that sense, that he's doing a Benitez, he's doing a Wenger, and just taking so long to bring on some impact subs. And Emery, as much as I thought, well, Emery at least was brave enough to make substitutions at halftime, and I don't think many managers are, and I think he deserved credit for that. And it would be nice to see Arteta, who seems to be a breath of fresh air in management, that if he just switched it around a little bit and maybe if he had brought Martinelli on at 60 minutes, I think we would have won that game.
Yeah, I mean, he was effective in both of his 10-minute. I mean, he was right there. If Lacazette hadn't gotten that his head on the ball for the final goal, he was right behind him. So, So, I viewed that as, even though he didn't really have as much to do in this game as he did the previous game, it's we're going to see more of him. I don't know that we're going to see a tremendous amount more of him this season, though. As long as Aubameyang is continuing to be in the games every game, I'm not so sure we're going to see as much Martinelli. I think we're going to see more ESR on the left wing now that Martin Odegaard has almost claimed his spot in the number 10 without ESR doing a thing wrong. He's now going to be pushed out wide because it looks like he can be and still be effective. So Martinelli may just be on the plan of, stick around. This is going to be tough for the next few months, but then we're going to make some moves over the summer. You're going to move up in the pecking order, and and with a full preseason of training, of being around, of seeing who goes out the door, who comes in the door. We're gonna let you go on the league next season. I almost think he's kind of holding him back a little bit. And while I don't like that, I like to see our best and most exciting players play. I do think that there's a plan in place for Martinelli. I hope that there's a plan in place for Martinelli. And I don't see him getting, at least not this season, maybe after another season like this next year, I don't see him getting the ump and wanting to leave and start saying, I got all these major teams calling on me and ready to let me play. I think we have another season to prove to him that we want to let him prove to us that he's an Arsenal man for the long term. And I hope that that's the case.
Mike Senior, do you like that?
Very distinguished.
Mike Senior, Aston comes along and says that the reason that Martinelli is behind Saka in the pecking order, but I don't think that they are competing for positions, really. Do you?
I would love to see. I mean, I would just die to see. And I don't. Again, it's hopefully 2 games a week next year. I don't want us out of Europe the next year partially for this reason, because then we're all of a sudden we're never going to see rotation the way. We're never going to see an ESR coming through and other players coming through if we don't have that second game in a week. But to see Martinelli, ESR, Saka, Odegaard, I mean, God, can you imagine just the possibilities that we have with that? And I'm in that I'm just completely leaving out Lacazette and Aubameyang, the 2 staples of our attack in the last couple of years. So, I mean, that we don't need to bring anyone in up there. That's for I mean, if you want to say Edouard to replace Laka and Aubameyang, I'll buy that. But we got an embarrassment of riches, I think, that we just have to figure out how to manage and get enough time for. It's not opening up another line of discussion, but it's the midfield we have to get sorted at this point in the summertime. But I believe Martinelli's got a bright future ahead of him here. I mean, how could he not?
Yeah. Mike, I'm quoting Arteta a lot tonight, but I make no apology for quoting Arteta because he's our manager at the end of the day. Yeah. And he has said that Martinelli's attitude in training has been fantastic. His efforts in training is fantastic. He's disappointed that he's not getting more game time. But that's what we would expect. We would be gutted. We would be worried if Martinelli wasn't upset and not getting game time. So right. I think it's all positive for Martinelli. I think he's, as Fergus said earlier, he's bringing him back in slowly. Don't necessarily agree with that approach, but once again, it all goes back to this summer and it goes back to the changes we're going to get this summer. And I think we'll find a much more involved Martinelli next season, possibly through the middle a lot more.
There's a difference between being upset you're not playing more and agitating for a move and being a disruption and that sort of thing. And I don't see him being the latter. I see him being the former.
Absolutely he is. Without a doubt he is, mate. Absolutely, without a doubt. And you just touched on European football. Trust me, I'm old enough to remember it, right? We don't. Lots of people are saying
Intercity Fairs Cup, Intertoto Fairs Cup.
It was the Stone Age Cup when they used to battle over a pebble.
The Herbert Chapman Trophy.
I'm just ignoring you 2 idiots now. But listen, you don't want a season out of European football. A season out of European football, selfishly, from a fan's perspective, is boring.
the one bad thing about discovering Arsenal in 88 to 90 was the fact that there was no Europe then.
Yeah. It's no good. It's boring from a fan's perspective.
And able to any because English teams weren't allowed in Europe at the time. And I got, it was a raw deal. So I've been trying to make up for it this last few years by going to Lisbon and Milan and Athens and all that. There's no better fun than that. And you'd know.
Yeah.
So, but just from a rotation standpoint, I mean, one game a week, you're going to see the same lineups, maybe one or two different changes. And we are at a point where we really need to see what these players have coming through. So Europe, for a squad like a West Ham or some of the other squads that have gotten to Europe and had it cost them in their league form, they don't have a squad big enough to do that. So they go from 38 to 45 games a year to 60, and it breaks them. We're not going to be broken by that. We're going to be able to learn who should and shouldn't be in the games by then, and I think that's ultimately valuable. So, to segue into the finish, hopefully we will be in Europe next season. Our 1 point against West Ham doesn't quite get us into the hunt, but we have a run in that very similar to our run in 2 seasons ago, which we shit the bed about between Palace and Spurs and Everton and Burnley and Brighton and all those games at the end. I think Burnley actually we won, but if we can get our act together and show up for these games, if the motivation is right, if the respect for the tactics is right, if we can get that done and finish off the Premier League season strong, I don't see any reason why we can't get into Europe. And I mean the good Europe, the medium Europe. Not the conference or whatever this new thing is, because you will, Trev, be going back to Polsava if we're in the conference league.
3 on Thursday
the Europa
afternoon.
Conference League, the Europa Conference League. Oh man, where have they thought that from? Well, it's all about the money, boys. It's all about another opportunity to get more sponsorship, more money into the game. But the final of the Europa Conference League in 2022 is in Albania, in Tirana. Yeah. Now, what a trip that would be. That would be very interesting indeed. So
well, it should. Let's not do that though.
Trev, can we transfer our accommodation from Gdansk, Tirana? Can we transfer our accommodation from there?
There should be like a UEFA package where, like, if your team doesn't end up making it, you get pushed forward to the next ridiculous city that you have to go to. But we're going to wrap it up with that. Thank you so much to the chat. I'll go to the guests in just a minute, but the chat, Aston and David Ziegler having a great chat about various topics, a respectful discourse, as I like to call it. Ray Anderson, Stan from Vancouver, thanks for joining us. Who else have we got in here? The real Giannis staying up late with us tonight. Earlier, we had visits from who else did we have here? I'm scrolling back. Is this all?
We had Chig in the house.
Yeah, Chig was in here for a while. We had Terry Greenwood. Thanks for joining us.
AKA 312 Gooner.
Yeah, Melvin Marks. Good chat tonight. Good discourse in there. We like having kind of 2 shows at once sometimes. And sometimes they merge together. So appreciate everyone that came in. Once more, if you did not catch our pod earlier today, please go back and check it out. Peter Drury, an absolute gentleman, a legend of football commentating, and really kind of the inspiration, if you will, behind the football bell from the Gooners podcast, in that he just, every other word out of his mouth is poetic football phrases that I live on, and absolutely, yeah. Kevin Campbell dropping by at the beginning of the show, as he loves to do.
Of course, with me and Trevor here.
He does that even when you and Trevor are not here. You have to understand.
It sure as heck didn't come from me. So,
but so Trev, yeah, I'm gonna unmute you now. Sorry about all the muting because of the clicking, but your phone was much better than the computer before. It's been a pleasure having you on, getting to know you a little bit better, and we're gonna be in some European city of little knowledge at some point in the next year or two. You and I having a couple pints together, I'm sure.
It's been a pleasure coming on here tonight, boys. It really has. I don't normally do other pods. I stick with Fergus, but I'm glad I came on here. Thank you for the invite. we will definitely meet up wherever it may be, boys, and we will drink beer and we will talk Arsenal and we will have fun. And I just need to say that although I fall out with Fergus is one of my very bestest pals, and I have fun with Fergus, and I love him to bits. So regardless of what of how it may come across on the podcast at times, we never actually fall out. We always agree and we have fun. And I just wish I'd have filmed him that night when he was dancing with Tony Adams' statue about 4 hours after the game ended. I'm gutted I missed that.
It is on video. It is on video. I've got it.
Oh yeah, I've got to see that. I've got some compromising pictures of myself with some of the statues outside the Emirates. I could send you those. I don't really want them circulating worldwide, but yes, I've got to see that. So please put that in the chat, and I promise. But Trev, it's great to see you again. Appreciate it. Fergus, always a pleasure. I enjoy our daily WhatsApping and communication, and every time we come on each other's pods, it's a great time. So we'll definitely do it again. Anti-nunnerism,
that's what it's called.
Yeah. You know, I can't believe we had him on the podcast like in season 2 or something like that. That one stays in the archives. But yeah, and Mikey Jr.
Before you close, thank you for the invite, both Mike Jr. and Senior. Really appreciate it, and also to Trev. Trev, you know, as you said, we have a bit of banter and a bit of a laugh, but us two, we just seem to click and get on. And if you like the two of us just like ripping the shit out of each other, join us on our regular. Well, they'll stop once it goes back to normal, I expect. But at the moment, we do like an hour and a half before kickoff. We do a pre-match preview podcast, and we have a look back at the last game and look forward to the next game.
And we do not do that. So make sure that we put all of our people in the pre-match and post-match. There's a lot of good pre and post-game shows.
And that's what's been great about lockdown, though, is the community that we've built. A Gooner community. We talked about it before when you joined us, and you mentioned it.
Ray didn't realize that Mike has a Latino son. Man, I've got more sons than I'd like to admit. One of them lives at home with me. The others are all over the Zoom and WhatsApp sphere. So.
But you mentioned it when you were on our podcast recently that like going through lockdown and going through the last year, and it is in the UK today. It's 12 months since we locked down our community, and the Arsenal community, podcast community, WhatsApp community, and everything else have helped me and many others to get through this shit time.
Absolutely, sure, and it's a pleasure. The number of people I've met through all of this, not just in the last year but beforehand, has grown the warmth and the boundaries of my Arsenal fandom and friendships. Leaps and bounds. And
12 pins.
Yeah, I reconnected with my dad through podcasting.
We just found out. The DNA test just came in today, and it's good. If you can, while you still can, please put a thumbs up in the chat. We're going to earn the real Giannis's thumbs up by that's not the one I was trying to put here. We're going to earn the real Giannis's thumbs up, which is hard. You have to work for it by playing a recently fun clip that we've that you can come to expect on the Gooners podcast, and then we're out of here. So with that, I will say the famous words as soon as I'm ready. Come on, you Gooners. Come on, you Gooners.